Okay, Ashama Harkafune. Welcome everybody to our Education Department Live. My name is Sartu Mohammed, and I'm joined with two of our current students in our Afaan Oromo Level 2 class, Hamdia and Lars. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves. We can start with Hamdia.
Hi, Akam Jatan. My name is Hamdia. I am from Atlanta. I work at a healthcare company as a senior manager in innovation and strategy.
It's my turn. My name is Lars, or Lars, as we say in Norwegian, and I work with kids, both children and teenagers and young adults, and try to teach them different things like nonviolent communication and things like that. And I'm from Norway. I don't. Did I say that? From Norway.
You're from Norway. Okay. So you two are students in our Afaan Oromo Level 2 class currently. How did you guys find out about the class? I guess we can start with Hamdia.
Well, I found out from the class about the class. I guess I have to start from the beginning. So I was working with Sena and Ayantu initially when Ollaa used to be called Cohort, and trying to remember the name of it. Cohort is Community of Oromo Human Rights and Democracy, which is now Ollaa. And I stepped down from my responsibilities at the time, and then. But Ayantu, I told her to let me know if there are other opportunities for me to help and be a part of this organization. And from there, she told me about the Afaan Oromo class, and I was TAing children, the kids level, and then I took the adults level 1 class, and so now I TA'd for both of those, and now I decided to just not TA this time and actually take the course for level 2. So that's how I found out about it from friends who were part of Ollaa.
Wow, really full circle, you the whole experience.
Yeah, I've been there from the beginning.
Yeah. And Lars, how did you hear about Ollaa's education classes?
I guess I'll have to start with the beginning. Me too. I was looking for a Norwegian Afaan Oromo dictionary, and I couldn't find it anywhere. It was sold out everywhere. So I asked my boss. He's from Somaliland, and I know he has a lot of Oromo friends. So I asked him, "Do you know anyone that could help me with this?" And he gave me the contact information to a guy, and I contacted him. And he had that dictionary, and he gave it to me for free, actually. Wow. And it was Mukhtar Usman's son, Mukhtar Usman, the artist, with the song Jette Jette. It was his son. And he told me about Ollaa. So that's how I learned about it.
Wow, that's amazing. So now let's talk about how you guys started learning Afaan Oromo. I know Hamdia, you're Oromo, so it's like learning your mother tongue. But I guess, when did you start learning? What kind of inspired you to start learning if you didn't know it originally? And kind of what led you down this path to where you are today?
Good question. Well, surprisingly, even though I'm born in the U.S., in Georgia, Afaan Oromo was my first language. And until my parents were very intentional about speaking Afaan Oromo in the household. So that was my first introduction. And along the years, there were a large community of Oromo people here. So I had no choice but to communicate with everyone. But when I got to school, started kindergarten, that's when I started taking ESL classes to learn English. And I took that for 2 years. I felt like a bit of an outsider because I look different than everyone. I have this long hair that everybody kept picking at, and nobody know what Ethiopia is or was, or what Oromo is. And so I unintentionally just stopped speaking the language as much as I got older. So I think in elementary school, I maintained my Afaan Oromo, mostly because at home we were speaking it, and there was a pretty large community of like Oromo women that were visiting my mom, and we would go to their place. So I was very immersed into the culture. But I stopped speaking it as much or as frequently in the household because my sister started going to school. She was speaking, my younger sister was speaking more English than Afaan Oromo. And then over time, I guess I could hear it. That was something that I didn't lose. I can hear it. But when I was trying to speak, everything would be on the tip of my tongue, or my grammar would be off, and people would laugh at me. People that knew me when I was younger would make this joke, "Oh my goodness, you spoke like you were perfect, like from Oromia, and now you don't speak it." And it kind of discouraged me to want to speak it for a long time. Fast forward, I went to college out of state, went to University of Alabama, which there are no Oromos. And I lost my identity along the way in those 6 years that I was attending there, going to my bachelor's and my graduate program. So when I finished and I came back home, I think the timing was just perfect because there were the Oromo protest was kind of kicking up in 2015, 2016. And I wanted to be involved in the Oromo protest, the Oromo cause. And I didn't think it was right for me to be involved and not know my own native tongue fully. I think that when I was having and hosting these events in Atlanta, I think that I would gain more respect from my fellow Oromos if I was speaking the native tongue, and I would be able to reach more people speaking my, Afaan Oromo. So that language barrier, it was just super frustrating for me. So long story short, I was really happy to hear that Ollaa was taking Afaan Oromo classes, creating the Afaan Oromo classes, and I was all for it because we need to be able to maintain our heritage and our culture, especially in the diaspora where you don't run into people like you all the time in corporate America and college. I mean, if you're in specific states that are, that have a very large community, then yeah, you might run into them all the time. But if you're in the middle of nowhere, you might not run into people all the time. So I was very intentional about learning my Afaan Oromo so that I can help in the Oromo cause and be able to spread the word and explain things to people who don't understand English as well. So.
Wow. I feel like that's I mean, thanks for sharing that. I feel like that's a common theme with children who grow up learning Afaan Oromo as their first language. I feel like school comes along and then they have to kind of like switch over to English and they lose their first language.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really commendable that, with everything that was going on, you said, let me come back and reconnect and learn. So how's the learning process going? Do you think you're better than where you were, say, 3 years ago?
Absolutely. I'm still a little shy to speak with people because people are going to laugh. I think my Afaan Oromo has like an American accent, and I want to sound like I'm Oromo because I am. But yeah, I speak with my family and I speak with my husband, so that is encouraging. He tries to correct me, which can be frustrating sometimes, but I appreciate it. I'm appreciating it. Yeah. So the learning process is still a learning progress.
That's for sure. And Lars, you spoke about wanting to find that dictionary, the Norwegian Oromo dictionary. What led you to wanting a dictionary? And kind of how did you learn about Afaan Oromo, and when did you start or decide to start?
I guess it started like 6 years ago, actually, when I moved into a student home with a lot of people from Africa, especially Ethiopia. And at that time, I didn't know anything about Ethiopia. I knew it was East Africa, capital Addis Ababa, and that's all I knew. So I guess 5 years ago, we had this dinner together, bringing food from your home country. And some people from Ethiopia brought injera. and it was like the best thing ever. It's my favorite food. So, but I got to know some of these people from Ethiopia and some from Oromia. Um, and I got to know a girl who I consider one of my best friends. And I wanted to learn her language. The first three words I learned was phone, hola, and shuka. And that was because she cooked me dinner. And I asked, what meat is this? Oh, yeah, it's lamb. Okay. Well, what's that in your language? Oh, it's phone, hola. And I was struggling a little bit with injera. So she asked me, do you need a fork? And I asked, what's fork in Afaan Oromo? It's shuka. So, and it started there actually 3 years ago.
Wow. So then, did you keep in contact with her, and then that's what made you want to learn the language eventually and get a dictionary?
Yeah, I guess we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but
Yeah, that's true.
there are several reasons why I want to learn Afaan Oromo. First of all, it's a beautiful language, so yeah. But we can talk about that later.
Sure. So I guess I want to touch upon Hamdia. Your family was a big part of you learning Afaan Oromo. How has that evolved since you've grown up? Do they teach you more about the culture and the norms and things related to the culture, or was it strictly only the language? And what does that look like now?
Good question. My parents were both very intentional about teaching me not just the culture and not just the language, but both. So that my mom is very traditional and still upholds the culture to this day. I am a little bit Americanized, but I do uphold some of the main cultures that my mom have taught me, and my dad as well, Rabbi Rahmata Guruf. So I don't know if I don't know if I answered your question.
So I guess are you still learning from them? Do they teach you still?
Oh, well, yes, I do learn from them, and I also contact my husband's father, and he was actually assisted in developing the Oromo dictionary, one of the famous dictionaries years ago. So I bounce ideas off of him. I text him with questions, especially on some of my homework assignments. If I don't understand something, I'll like send it to him and say, "Well, what does this mean?" And so he's super helpful in that way.
That's very resourceful.
Oh
That's
yeah.
very resourceful. And Lars, how have your friends, since you've met them, primarily being from Ethiopia, how have they helped you learn the language and the culture?
Yeah, but the problem is that they can't teach me grammar. They say we can teach you how to talk, but no, don't ask us about grammar because or spelling because we are not good at that. So that's what they tell me, though.
What else have you learned from them? Have you picked up things about the culture?
Yeah,
Maybe depending on where they're from, even in Oromia?
yeah. One of my friends is from Borana, so he's told me a lot about the Gada system and yeah, traditional Oromo beliefs, the religion the Oromos had before Islam and Christianity came to the area, and yeah, so it has been
So,
really interesting. So
so you've learned a
I'd love
lot.
to learn more.
Yeah. Okay. Have they inspired you to learn more and have been helpful in that process?
Yeah, I've read a lot on my own, actually. So, but I need to read more. I need to learn more.
Yeah, there's always the ability to learn more.
Yeah.
So, have you found, have you guys experienced any challenges, would you say, with maybe when you're trying to learn from your family, or there are like certain things? Obviously, we grew up in the West, so there's always work and school and things that come in the way of you learning or being able to reconnect, whether it be maybe for Hamdia, for you, family back home that you're not able to reconnect with. Or just what are some of the challenges that you've experienced with learning the culture, learning the language, if any?
Well, I guess I'll start with the fact that learning Afaan Oromo, there are different dialects or different regions say things differently. And if I think that was something that was very confusing for me initially. And then also love my mom, but she mixed Afaan Oromo and Arabic and Amharic when she speak, and it might be contributed to the fact that in Hararghe region they kind of do mix the language a little bit, but mostly was Oromo. It's just simple words that I've over the years like learned about, like satara, which is a curtain, but that word is Arabic, but that's a common word that Oromo people use, but it's actually Michilalu. So it's like, but anyways, neither here nor there. But yeah, I think that was difficult for me, is to understand the nuances between different regions, and also the grammar when you're conjugating it between different. I think and making sure you're speaking to the person was a difficult part for me. So I kept it very short when I talked to my grandma, Oko. I love her, and I want to tap in more and dig into her more, but I struggle to ask her certain questions, but I understand everything. So the things that she's saying to me, the dua that she's making for me, I listen and I hear it. I just wish that she can hear my heart or something. But I think that's the most difficult part, is to engage with people from my family members that are back at home and try to make that real connection with them. I think that's a difficult task to do, especially if your Oromo is a little choppy, or my habos would tell me chachapsi hasoi, but if you do that and say things, it might be rude or it comes across as disrespectful if you're talking to your elder. So I try to be mindful of all of that, but it's definitely a challenge. But I'm trying to push through it. So people that know that I'm learning my Afaan Oromo don't judge me or anything like that. And even when I went back home, my grandma was just appreciative of the fact that I could say the few words that I could say, and my family members there too were just grateful that we could hold a broken Oromo from my side, and they're really fluent, obviously, Afaan Oromo from them. They were just glad to even have the ability to communicate, and that was encouraging for me too. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I relate to you 100%, where it's like you can't say exactly what you want to say, like in the language, but you try, and honestly, it's the effort that counts, I think, the most. And people see that and they appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I guess for Lars, have you experienced any challenges when you were learning from your friends, or maybe if you met a friend back home, or what kind of challenges did you experience other than grammar with learning the language or communicating with people?
I guess I haven't met any challenges. It is kind of difficult for me to answer that question because I don't have any family back home in Ethiopia, and most of my friends they came to Norway as refugees, so they grew up in Ethiopia, and they know the culture, they know the language, so they don't have the problems that maybe some of the people in our classes have. So, but it is a difficult question for me to answer.
Okay, no worries.
I mean, people are really helpful, really helpful.
Yeah.
And so I said to one of my friends one time, please tell me if I'm asking too many questions, because I have a lot of questions about everything. And she told me, no, that's one of the things we like about you. You ask a lot of questions. So you're showing some interest. So yeah, people have been very helpful.
I think it means a lot to people when someone that they wouldn't expect to be interested in their culture or their language is really interested and motivated to learn.
Yeah.
It makes them want to teach more, probably.
Yeah.
So moving over to our class, you guys are currently taking our Afaan Oromo level 2. Tell us a little bit about the class. We'll start with Lars, and kind of what have you experienced so far? What have you learned? How has it been? Has it helped?
Yeah, it has helped, but I mean, still prefixes and suffixes are a little confusing to me. So I have to work on that. but I found what we like last class about Sinke. That was really interesting. I like learning about those things also, not just the language in itself, but also the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really rewarding for me.
Have you taken a class before? Is this your first time taking like a structured class?
It's my first time, so I'm going to take level 1 because I was too late. I found out about Ollaa, and the registration deadline had just passed for the level 1 class, so I just signed up for level 2 because I couldn't wait. I just wanted to get started, but I'm going to take level 1 and probably take level 2 one more time.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, I'm gonna master this language. It's gonna take a while, but I'll get there.
I really like that about the class, that it's not strictly the language. It's like we learn about things related to the culture that also help you maybe understand certain parts of the language.
Yeah, I
Better.
think maybe I'm the guy that has the most to learn. I kind of learn about the African American experience also.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up in Norway. I've lived 1 year in the United States, but it was in the middle of a field in Nebraska and zero diversity. So, so I didn't learn much that year. But yeah.
Wow. And Hamdia, tell us a little bit about your experience with the class. What have you learned so far? How has it been? Has it helped you develop your Afaan Oromo? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think at first I'll start with the fact that I think Brasisa Samuel does a really good job of incorporating both the culture and the language, like you guys said. And he also points out the different word choices that are used for each of the regions so that it's applicable to everyone. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, I really love the Sinke class too, because although I feel like I hear about Cinque a lot, but I don't know about Cinque as much as I should. So I really appreciated him breaking that down and taking that time. I love the class. I think I took level 1, but I think I'm gonna go back and take level 1 again because the prefixes and suffixes are a really difficult challenge for me. I have had some aha moments now where I'm like, oh, that makes sense because I'm starting to hear people say or things that are referenced in the classroom. And so I'm starting to make that connection. But I still feel like I have a long way to go before I really feel comfortable. Like as comfortable as I feel speaking English, I want that same comfort. So I'm going to definitely take these 2 classes again. And hopefully that will encourage the Ollaa leaders to develop a level 3.
Hopefully that will be in the works. Yeah, I think when you're learning a language, it's one thing to study it, but it's another thing to hear it, constantly and really. Like, I think most of your language development comes from hearing it and speaking it with others. And I think that it'll only grow, like your level of confidence speaking, if you just do a little bit each day and take it day by day, really. Yeah. But now, I guess we've been talking about Afaan Oromo, we've been talking about our classes. Why is it important for Oromos, non-Oromos, people interested in the language to learn? Or, even especially for diaspora Oromos, why is it important to learn, and kind of why you both took the initiative to start learning or take the classes? We can start with Lars.
Yeah, it's not just one reason. Like I said, it's a beautiful language, and I said to my friend when she spoke, I was just listening to her speaking on the phone, and I told her the words are kind of dancing. I like the flow, like in the song we listened to the other day of Abush Seleke, Lobola, Yoga Lobola. I just like the rhythm and the flow. That's one reason. And the other reason is that, like I said, I have a friend and she came to Norway as a refugee, and I've seen how difficult life has been for her, and it really made an impression on me. And she told me about the things her family had experienced, or my other friends have also told me about their experiences, and it really made an impression. So I was kind of like, oh, what can I do? And since the Oromo people have been ridiculed for the language, I just decided maybe the best idea is to learn the language as an act of solidarity. Like, that was
That's
the
really
only thing
commendable.
I could think of.
That.
And I can tell it means a lot to people. Last year, after the Irecha celebration in Oslo, I just posted a few videos and a picture on Facebook. And I got all these friend requests from people I've never met. And they just started thanking me for posting that video and those pictures. And that was kind of heartbreaking, actually, because then I realized what life, uh, what they experience. I mean, if you become so happy just because some people recognize your culture and your language, you don't get enough of that recognition, I guess. So that was kind of heartbreaking. It didn't make me feel good to get all these thank yous, because the only thing I did was like treat them like human beings. Like, I see you.
I think another thing is for people to see, you know, the culture well and alive somewhere else, and to see people kind of upholding it where they wouldn't think it would be. I think is another reason why people may have been, you know, saying thank you.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's really commendable. Yeah, Hundia, go ahead.
sorry, I just want to add, I think it means a lot to Oromo people also because we don't have that recognition within the country itself. So to have someone that's not a non-Oromo say, "We see you," it's really empowering to me. I'm getting emotional, but I just wanted to say thank you myself.
Yeah, I can't talk about all these things because I get emotional too. I don't want to start crying on live broadcast on Facebook, but it's, yeah. So
Well, Hundia, you can tell us about why learning Afaan Oromo is important for you, or why it should be important for, you know, people in the diaspora, and kind of what motivated you to learn after, you know, maybe a bit away from Afaan Oromo.
Oh, wow. That's a multifold question, but I'll try my best to answer that. So I think it's important for people in the diaspora, whether you're born in a diaspora or move there for whatever reason, it's important to maintain the culture, the language. I think it's easy to fall into the category of immersing into the country that you're living in and their culture. And I think that with that being said, we need to be mindful now. I think the new generation, like my generation, that was born here or that, came when they were 5, 6 years old, I think we have a different mindset about how we want to, encourage our children to maintain the culture and the language. So it's really important for me because I can't, like I said earlier, I can't fight for the Oromo people cause and speak for Oromo people and then not be fluent in the language. I got to be able to work on both sides. I have to be able to communicate with my community in a way where they can understand me. And then I have to also communicate with, the US government in a way that I need to be able to bridge that gap. And I think that's what's important about the diaspora is because we can bridge that gap between the language and the culture barrier between our community and the country that you're living in and their government, and making sure that it's well known about the issues that we're going through. So that's my main reason for learning the language, because I can't speak if I don't like the feeling of hosting an event and saying something in English and then passing the mic over for them to translate. I don't like that feeling. So I want my goal is whenever I host another event, is to be able to speak thoroughly to my people so they can understand exactly what's going on. Not saying that, people don't know English, but there is a slight language barrier. So that's for the diaspora. Why I decided to march ahead is because when I went to Alabama, being the only Oromo person, not saying I didn't run into Africans, I met Africans, but I did not meet any Oromos, nor did I meet any Ethiopians there. So I was very intentional about staying connected with, family members that stayed like about an hour away, one being in Starkville, Mississippi, and the other one being in Birmingham. But even that, I did not feel, when I went to their houses, I felt like, I can be myself. Like, I don't know what it is about coming into an Oromo home. You just feel like you're at home. And so for me, I felt like I lost some of that being away in college for so long. So when I came back home, I was like, but I'm still Americanized. I'm still born here, but I felt like while I was away, I lost a piece of my identity. So when I came back, I was very intentional, telling my mom, don't speak anything but Afaan Oromo in the house, because she picked up the habit of responding back to me in English because I talked to her in English. But I just, it really, what pushed me over the edge is that Oromo protest. Like, I have to be really honest. Back in 2015, 2016, that's what really pushed me over the edge when I was attending these Oromo conferences and they're speaking all of these vocabularies that I'm unfamiliar with. And there was no person translating for people like me that want to get involved. I felt really discouraged, to be honest, hitting some of those walls, trying to get involved, but then not understanding the language completely. Like, I thought I understood it until I started seeing and meeting more Oromos. I think back then there was a Snapchat called Oromos Connect, that really connected Oromos from all over the world. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't understand this person's accent. And then that's when I started to really learn about all of the types of Oromos and the way that they talk. And we don't all talk the same. I mean, we kind of do for the most part, right? Majority, but there are some, what's the word that I want to use? Accents that we have, or a little bit of slang, or that's common in certain regions. So that was my reason, and why I think it's very important to be a part of, to learn your language, to learn your culture. And for the non-Oromos, multifaceted question, sorry, but for the non-Oromos, I think it's important for us to teach, like us Oromos, I think we need to teach our non-Oromo friends about our culture. And so for me, I've invited my friends, my best friends, to an Oromo cultural show in Atlanta, which was the first one that we had in a very long time, back in 2016, 2017, something like that. And that's when they started asking all these questions. And then I informed him about all of the the things and abuses and human rights issues, violations that are happening back in Oromia, and and they're just curious, and so they attended my wedding. They learned the dances. I mean, I think it's important for us to talk about who we are to our friends who are non-Oromos, and to ask them to help us. I think that it's not a problem to do that. It just raises more awareness.
100%. Lars, is there anything you'd like to add on to that question, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I work with some Oromo kids. Some of them understand Afaan Oromo, but they don't speak it themselves. And I try to encourage them to talk more Afaan Oromo at home, so they don't lose the language. Because I listen to what Hamdia says, and other people in my class said you kind of lose a part of yourself if you lose the language. And I think they are going to regret not speaking more Afaan Oromo when they get older, when they get kids and things like that. So I
Yeah,
try to encourage them. Yeah.
definitely. I think many diaspora regret later on that, you know, not speaking and really not taking advantage of it in their youth. Definitely.
Yeah. And I have to emphasize again, it's a beautiful language. Please talk more Afaan Oromo. It's, yeah.
No, definitely. Do you have any last final remarks you'd like to share with our viewers?
About that, the last question you just asked, or
Or
just
anything? Yeah.
I say get involved in Ollaa, learn the language. The Afaan Oromo level 1 classes registration is open. Go to your Facebook and find a link. That's it.
Yeah, so Ola will be running 3 classes this fall, our Afaan Oromo Level 1, Afaan Oromo for kids, as well as the Gada class. So if you're interested, registration will be closing sometime next month. Classes are set to start next month as well. So if you're interested, please go to ollaa.org/classes, ollaa.org/classes, and you can join Hamdi and Lars in our Afaan Oromo Level 1, and they can share all that they've learned with you, and you can make some new friends. So that's it for our live discussion today. Thank you for tuning in and staying with us till the end, and we'll see you in the next one. Nagati.
Bye, everyone. Nagati.